Good morning, good evening, and hello everyone. Welcome back to Scott. For those you are new to Scott, welcome to Scott family. We are with you again with Scott volume 45 with a wonderful topic. And this webinar is in Japanese and English both. Please select your favorite channel in the bottom of the screen. You will hear live translation between Japanese and English tonight. In this webinar, we are going to bring a very important topic up, which is hospitality. Sustaining communities through net positive hospitality. And if you are curious about net positive hospitality and you don't know about it, don't worry. We have great news for you tonight. We try to speak slowly because we know that the interpretation takes a bit time. So we are going to help the interpretation with a slow presentation tonight. The future of tourism industry depends on protecting locations, livelihoods, and communities in which hotels are based. Therefore, we must all ask that we can do to create a prosperous and sustainable hospitality sector. Hotels share local resources with tourists, as you know, and each must move towards having a net positive impact on environment. This is what will be explained in detail by our guest speaker, Glenn, tonight. And he's going to talk about the zero impact and emphasize that, or they believe that is not even enough. So I won't explain more about the webinar because I know he and the other two speakers are going to talk about in details. Let me introduce our speakers today. First, Glenn Mansell. Glenn is the Chief Executive Officer of the Sustainability Hospitality Alliance, the leading global network in responsible hospitality. He's an internationally recognized CEO with over 25 years of leadership experience in advancing sustainable practices in tourism, hospitality, and economic development. Before being CEO of Sustainable Hospitality Alliance, and as I know Glenn, he was the President and Chief Executive Officer of Canada's Thompson Okanagan Tourism Region, TODA, with its 4,000 industry stakeholders. Glenn's leadership resulted in the organization being recognized as a global champion of excellence and innovation in sustainable destination. I know Glenn back from that time and the UNWTO Quest certification that shows what an interesting and important job they did in that region. After Glenn's presentation from a global and international perspective, we are going to take you to a very local destination, a small city with huge number of tourists. And Peter, to our this webinar discussions, Glenn was also interested to look through this local destination and see how the global solutions are implement or can be implemented in the local destination of Beppu. Beppu city is a city with about 100,000 residents and more than 18 million visitors. And those who come here, they come for the blessing environment and hot springs of the city and we have issues and sustainable culture of hospitality that brings this today's collaboration and today's discussion a very unique and special one. We will hear from Rikyo Kubo, who is the CEO of Matsuhide and the CEO of Amane Resort. Rikyo Kubo was born in Usa City. Usa is a very special city in Oita Prefecture because they have a national heritage in that city. In Oita Prefecture, he was born in 1957, and he has been working in hospitality for over 40 years. The Kubo family have been organizing this business since very early stages of tourism and hospitality development in Beppu. They have the facility of Amane Resort, and it was purchased in 1993 and developed. In 2016, he bought the surrounding properties, and he also used as a recreation facility by Kyushu Electric Power in Beppu and opened a Gahama Terrace as a seaside villa resort while keeping the original building. The Sky building of Seikai has a suite with a swimming pool and other facilities. And they have Amane Resort as the complex of all. He will continue to expand and renovate the resort complex and improve its services by developing it as a high-level hot spring, ryokan, or Japanese traditional and modern together hospitality resorts in Beppu. And then we have the last but not the least, Miss Haruna Yoshimi from Intercontinental Hotel or ANA-Intercontinental Hotel in Beppu. She's the room division manager, and since received the Bachelor of Arts in Italian Studies from Tokyo University of Foreign Studies, she jumped into hospitality industry and started a career as Bell started in Hilton, Tokyo Bay. She gained experiences successfully at luxury and large hotel and resorts of Hilton Group, Cunard and its flagship Hilton at 8 locations, Tokyo Bay, Sydney, Melbourne, Bali, Singapore, Bangkok, Tokyo, and Odawara before joining Intercontinental Hotel in Beppu. She's going to elaborate how and in what extent Intercontinental is incorporating its effort to the destination management of Beppu, along with the Hotel Seikai and Amane Resort that are more community-based hospitality service and a unique example of hospitality service development and sustainable hospitality. We have also Intercontinental as a newcomer and as a chain holder of hospitality organization that both of them are working side by side to sustain the destination of Beppu. And we are going to learn from Sustainable Hospitality Alliance and see how we can collaborate and interact with international hospitality organizations that we have one of the most, and I say the leader of the industry tonight, and see how this interesting dialogue will form and how we can extend it and sustain it and expand it in Japan from now on. I don't take more time, and I would like to ask Glenn, who has been participating in a very important event COP27. And he is still there. I've been following the news and seeing his photos maybe a few times every day with so many meetings, and I'm really thankful to him to made his time available for this webinar. Glenn, the floor is yours.
Well, thank you so much, Kazem. It's indeed an honor to be part of such a distinguished panel of speakers here. I'm anxious to hear from every one of them. Yes, I'm speaking from COP27 here in Egypt. Really making sure that the hospitality industry is really engaged in this discussion of climate change and really becoming a much more leader in this discussion. I'm going to share with you my screen, and hopefully all things will work. And please let me know if that is up there now.
Yes, we can see it.
Perfect.
Maybe you like to put it in presentation mode too.
Yes.
Thank
there
you.
we go. You're
Perfect.
good. Perfect. Yes, I speak on behalf of the Sustainable Hospitality Alliance. It's a global charity headquartered in London. And I'll speak a little bit about more in detail about the Alliance itself. But before I get into that, I just want to give some thoughts and some philosophies behind the work that's going on at the Alliance. And, you know, it wasn't this long ago, it wasn't too long ago that we saw quotes like this and the opportunity and, quite frankly, impact that tourism was playing into this. And obviously the rise of this notion of over-tourism prior to the pandemic was becoming much more prevalent in the discussions. And as you know, as you see, it was the Oxford Word of the Year for 2018, and the impact of tourism was not seen as a beneficiary in some instances, in some communities, in some jurisdictions around the world. And we saw destinations go from places like this to places like this. And the rejection that was happening from communities towards the industry. And, you know, the headlines in the newspapers was becoming much more prevalent that tourism was not on the right track for its efforts. So why did this happen? And, you know, it's been, I think, you know, it's basically because the tourism industry was following an industrial model, a traditional industrial model of production and consumption. And, you know, it was very linear. It was basically a linear model where we learned to think in cause and effect, in boxes and lines, and to take, make, sell, and discard. And, you know, that traditional linear model of consumption plays into this notion of, you know, well, how we measured success. And how we measure success was around productivity and profitability. Basically, those indicators of, you know, occupancy rates or arrivals and revenues was the basis of how we indicate success. And, you know, as we come out of the pandemic, you know, you have to ask yourself the question, has anything really truly changed in our approach to doing business? And when we look at statistics like, we know in our work directly in the hospitality industry, there are over 2.5 million new hotel rooms in the pipeline that are already approved around the world for construction. We've also seen that less than 1% of those companies have established science-based targets within their operations. And even further to that, when we look at this notion of embodied carbon, which is with all new construction, we're not just talking about the building envelope, we're talking about everything that goes inside the building, whether it be the materials, the furniture, all that element makes up an additional 50% of those carbon emissions that are going into the atmosphere. Further to that, when we look at other statistics, we know that from a consumer standpoint, that 81% of travelers confirm that sustainable travel is important to them. And that was a booking.com study, and it's a very comprehensive review of consumer attributes. And yet, only 28% of the hospitality companies have a climate strategy in place, according to the UNWTO's Climate Trends Report. When we look at from the people perspective, we know that 10% of all jobs in the world are related to travel and tourism sector. And yet, the Forbes World's Best Employers list for 2021, probably one of the foremost indicators of employee satisfaction and employee measurement, only 1.5% of the companies on that list were hotels. And when you combine the fact that 10% of the private sector has forced labor that occurs in the accommodation sector and in food services, or ultimately 1.5 million people, obviously there are some serious issues that need to be addressed. And on top of that, when we look at water, we know that 3% of the world's water is fresh and drinkable. But in some locations in the world, we see that consumers that come to a respective community can drink up to 8 times more per person on average than the local population. And then we've seen this rise of this notion of ecological obsolescence or stranded assets when it comes to buildings. As rules and taxonomy and as regulation changes within respective countries around the world, if a hotel chooses to do nothing and not invest in a comprehensive climate strategy, the cumulative combined efforts between penalties and lost energy savings to 2050 could be significant. And as you see here on the screen, for a typical 500-room hotel, 5-star hotel, that estimated cost, depending on where it's located in the world, could range from 31 million to 115 million, or basically 63,000 to 230,000 US per key. And so it's really important that the industry begin and start to make the investments they need to do in order to address climate change, but also to address the growing interest from governments and from regulators around this notion. So when we look at hospitality, how do we fundamentally transform hospitality into an agent of positive change? And when we look at this notion, we think about leadership. And each one of you that are attending this meeting are inspired by leaders who help drive the conversation. For me, I'll just highlight a few people that have inspired me and, quite frankly, inspire our work at the Alliance. Certainly when we look at Mahatma Gandhi and his notion around we need not wait to see what others do, that we need to get and be leaders and forward thinking and not wait for somebody else to do it for us, but actually take the steps necessary to be that leader. Another individual would be Steve Jobs and the work they did at Apple with this whole notion of think different. And this understanding that people buy why you do something, not what you do. And that gets down to that very important principle of purpose. as a Canadian that's recently moved to London, but one never goes too far from one's roots. One of the most famous hockey players in the history of the game was Wayne Gretzky. And he summarized his notion of his success around where he noted that he skates to where the puck is going to be, not to where it's been. So always being very strategic and forward thinking and being ahead of the play, not behind it. And finally, a very most obviously, as I mentioned, a new resident of London, and watching what has happened over the last few weeks is the passing, obviously, of Queen Elizabeth II. But certainly her dedication to service and to serve something that was bigger than herself, and her inspiration to do that has been a tremendous inspiration for myself and certainly for our organization. And I wanted to just also highlight something again as a Canadian from Thompson, Okanagan, another individual that certainly has inspired me in our thinking again at the Alliance, Frank Antoine, who is an Indigenous leader from Canada. And he talked about the notion of Kanukantua, which is really working together both spiritually and mentally in order to have success. And it really is breaking down the barriers of relationships in order to succeed, and having it come, quite frankly, from the heart. And far too often we don't work together as close as we should in the tourism industry. We need to break down those silos that have occurred over those years and really shift that paradigm of thinking. So when we talk about this paradigm shift of thinking and changing that model of what success looks like, we need to rethink what we value and how we measure success in a much more holistic view in our approach. We need to confront that notion of zero-sum thinking, that there's a negative to every action that we do. We need to really confront that. And we also need to really balance our approach to customer and community. We have, as an industry, spent a great deal of time understanding the customer and really working towards that. But then when we have to balance that, though, with the needs of the community, and that really changes the way we perspective. We have to understand those political, those investor, those public sentiment notions that are out there that we need to apply to our business model. We need to respect tourism overall is a privilege and not a right. And when you change from that perspective, you change the way you do business. And finally, you need to innovate, and we need to collectively to lead the conversation. And as it goes back to what I've talked about, the people that have inspired us to do the work that we do, we have to really lead the conversation so that we can attract investment, attract employees, and attract customers. So as I mentioned, this idea of that privilege, not a right. So as hotels and tourism providers, we are guests within a local community. And it's in that community that gives us the social license to operate. And so that privilege really needs to be respected. And as we look at the industry overall, we look at this quote that we need to be more deliberate about our role in society, and that we have more purpose in our strategy and in our approach, because when we do that, we will ultimately attract the customers, the employees, and have the support of communities and other shareholders in that effort. So that leads us to this notion of what Kazim was talking about around net positive hospitality. We as an industry has really adopted this approach. Basically, at its root is business that gives back more than it takes. It's important to know that when we look at it, we are not in a philanthropic business. We are in the business to make money, but there is an opportunity here to do more, to be that force for good and be able to contribute back to society. So it's time to embrace this notion. And at the Alliance, the Sustainable Alliance is growing rapidly. It's been around for 30 years. It came out of the Rio Conference in 1992. It was inspired and led by then Prince and now King Charles III. And it brings together the largest collection of hotel companies in the world. With this, over 45,000 hotel properties and over 7 million rooms are a part of the Alliance already. And we've added to the Alliance the supply chain. And we have a number of companies and organizations that are continually joining to broaden our conversation around sustainability and the depth within the supply chain. And this grouping of industry players continue to grow on a daily basis, and we're very, very proud of that. So the Alliance drives collaborative action to enable that every hotel to advance responsibly. One of our key areas of focus has been our work with our members and the wider industry to develop practical tools, resources, programs, to enable every hotel to operate more responsibly and sustainably. To date, we have created 4 freely accessible measurement methodologies for carbon, water, waste, and plastics. As you see on the screen, our carbon measurement initiative and the hotel water measurement initiative allow hotels to easily calculate carbon and water footprints in a comparable way. The 2 methodologies are being used by over 50,000 hotels globally already, and that's a conservative number. And it is incorporated into management platforms for major hotel companies, including Hyatt, Marriott International, Radisson Group, Scandic, and many business travel platforms. And while previously sustainability thinking was predominantly focused on addressing carbon and water, that is evolving very rapidly into topics around hotel waste measurement methodologies and plastics measurement as well. And when we look at this, when we think about water, as I referenced earlier in my presentation, we've also identified and developed a destination water risk index, which helps guide hotels when they're thinking about investing and constructing their properties in various jurisdictions around the world, that they take into account the water risk of that construction and ensure that appropriate mitigation exercises are built within the models. So we have been doing this report for a number of years, and we're just about to release the most latest report in partnership with Ecolab and Greenview. So are we galvanized to act? In March, the Sustainable Hospitality Alliance launched a pathway to net positive hospitality. And this is a pathway that provides practical tools and resources to show businesses how they can take those steps to achieve that notion of giving back more than you take. And we are now just embarked on updating the pathway to include the people agenda. As an organization, we look at people, planet, place, and prosperity adds up to net positive hospitality. So I'm very proud of the fact that the Alliance and its members and donor members have really come together to achieve what we believe will be a forward-thinking and leadership approach to this effort. And I just want to share a little video that highlights that effort.
Positive impact hospitality has on our communities and environments globally is unmistakable. But we know we have to do more.
Whether it be energy, our carbon output, our whole supply chain, and are we taking responsible action to ensure that communities benefit directly from our purchases and our investments?
Make sure you contribute to those what it matters the most, which is your employees, your guests, local community, the local suppliers. Reduce your energy consumption, preserve the oceans.
No one company can shape the future of responsible travel alone. It requires teamwork and a real collective effort across the industry to achieve a common goal.
We are building back responsibly. I'm inviting all the hotels around the world to join the movement for a sustainable hotel industry.
Our vibrant industry has the ability and responsibility to act with urgency to bring to life our collective vision for net positive hospitality.
We can really make that so needed impact to stop where the world is going, reverse whatever we can still reverse, and really ensure that we make sure that people, the environment, the globe, and everything else is sustained for very many years in the future.
So thank you very much for the opportunity to share what's happening at the Alliance, and look forward to hearing the other guest speakers.
Thank you, Glenn. Thank you very much. I'm very excited to know even more about the 4 Ps and what you emphasize, carbon and water. And hospitality is blamed for being an intensive use of both, and being also blamed that not sometimes training the customers to behave as they behave at home. So how they should feel hotels and accommodations a part of their home. And what you are doing in global scale is amazing. And it is very important to bring this message to local and also hear from local. The example that we have tonight is Beppu city in Japan. In south of Japan is in Kyushu Island, and the city of Beppu is famous all over Japan for its hot springs. We have over, if I'm Malcolm Cooper is here and he knows better than me that how many hot springs. Maybe we have 3,000 hot springs here in this city, and is the second place after Yellowstone in the world in terms of the amount of hot water or hot spring that we have coming out of the ground. And in Japan, this destination is not only for rest and recreation, but also is a holy place. It's part of the Japanese religion that they respect the nature and the bounty of nature. Today we have one of the beautiful examples of sustainable management of hot springs and hot spring culture and utilizing these natural resources in hospitality industry. Mr. Kubo from Amane Resort is going to share with us how they have been applying the message of sustainable hospitality in a very local language. Kubo Shacho, floor is yours.
はい、ありがとうございます。私ども、アマネリゾートご紹介くださったように、日本のほんの小さな片隅にある別府っていう地域、言われたように温泉で有名な別府なんですけども、非常に小さなローカルで、ローカルコミュニティで、頑張って、ホスピタリティ産業をやろうと。35年前に、この業界に、参入しました。私どものアマネリゾートというその名前の由来、これ日本の仏教をやっている一辺上人という方が、上陸した地域として上人ヶ浜という、別府市上人ヶ浜というローカルな地名で、営業しています。その一辺上人が温泉を開発して、回ったという言い伝えもございます。で、まずは青海というホテルを開業して、その青海を開業したときに使った、ロゴマークで、色を決めるのに、日本の伝統色であるコキハナダっていう、伝統色を使って、これをずっと守っています。35年。まあ、今からもずっとこの色を使おうということを思っています。それに、永遠の平安を示すという伝統的な模様、青海波、これ日本独特なものだと思いますけども、青海波というものを使っています。で、2016年にガハマテラスというものを隣接地に開業いたしまして、そのロゴマークで、海と陸と空のイメージを3本線で描きました。その時の色もコキハナダを使って、日本の伝統をいかに出していけるのかな、いきたいなということで、つなげています。で、青海とガハマテラスという2つのホテル、温泉旅館が一体になって、アマネリゾートという、リブランドをした名前で、今現在、営業しています。先ほどの一辺上人という、日本の独特の漢字、がありまして、それを、アマネの義であり余すところなく隅々まで行き渡るということで、アマネリゾートという名前を付けました。まあ、英語表記でするとあまり、馴染みはないんですけども、あくまでも日本の伝統を守っていくということで、やっています。私どもホテルではなくて温泉リゾート旅館という形で、ずっと営業していってまいります。経営している会社は、松秀という会社で経営しています。ホテルの名前がアマネリゾートという形で、経営と運営を少しでも分けようとはしていますけども、大体日本の ホテル、旅館というのが、オーナーとオペレーターが同じという形態が多く見られます。はい。はい。で、今、説明した青海とガハマという2つのビデオがありますので、短いですので、少し見ていただきたいと思います。はい、ありがとうございます。見ていただいた通り、我々の旅館は海辺にあります。で、海辺にあるがゆえに、いろんな、形で海、ひいては水ということに非常に、関わり深く、出しています。で、もう一つ水ということに関して言えば、温泉という私たちの財産が、非常に関わってきます。これも、温泉で、癒していただけることが、あるんですけども、反面、環境に、すごく罪があるということもあります。なぜかというと、放素、フッ素という、害のあるものが中に含まれています。それを自然界に流している。これは今、日本の環境省から、早く取り除く技術を提供していかなければいけないというふうには、言ってますけど、まだまだ技術提供が、できていません。と同じく、温泉のエネルギーがあります。温度が高い、この温度が高いまま海に流すということ。はい。海にそのまま流すということが、やはり環境に負荷を与えているという事例があります。そんなもろもろなことをどうやって取り除いたらいいのか。それを私たちが考えていかなければならない部分。で、もう2つあります。もちろん、グレンさん言われたような CO2、当然あるんですけども、食物残差、食べるもの、生ゴミが非常に多く、出ていますので、それをどうやったらいいのだろうということで、農業と結びつけて、リサイクルをやろうということで、堆肥化して、農家に持ち込んで、その堆肥で野菜を作ってもらって、それを全部買い上げる。で、またそれが、生ゴミになってリサイクルができる。という部分。で、その間に温泉の熱を利用して、発酵させる。生ゴミと温泉熱というもののリサイクルができる。で、先ほどグレンさん言われましたように、プラスチックは再利用ができるといいねということで、今のところは、アメニティを、プラスチック原料を減らして、使っているというのが現実ですけども、最終的には、 100% を再利用ができるアメニティを使いたいという、試みをしています。将来的には、こういうものがすべて、できるように、したいというのが私たちの望みです。まあ、大体以上のような試みでやっています。次にバトン渡したいと思いますが、よろしいでしょうか。
はい、ありがとうございます、久保社長。Thank you. And it was very impressive presentation. I feel very honored and lucky to work with you in the same community. First of all, I'd like to thank for this opportunity, valuable opportunity to join the webinar and share about SDGs, such an important topic, which we all need to think about together for our planet from now on and long into the future. Let me share my presentation. Just a moment. Can you see the screen? Okay. So,
はい、映っております。
はい、ありがとうございます。次のスクリーンに。Okay. So my presentation is two parts. First, I will talk about IHG initiative as a global company. And main body is about what we do as a ANA-Intercontinental Beppu Resort and Spa as a local company. So about IHG, we are one of the world leading hotel companies whose purpose is to provide true hospitality for good. Our SDG initiative is aligned with this purpose. IHG has properties in more than 100 countries. Like APU has a student from 100 countries. 6,000 plus hotels it's opened, and 1,800 plus hotels are in the pipeline. As a global company, we have 10-year action plan aligned with SDGs to ensure the beauty of travel right now and long into the future. To deliver true hospitality for good, we care about our people and communities while preserving planet. We call this as journey to tomorrow. Now, briefly talk on my background. I've been working in hospitality for 18 years in a different location, worked in 9 properties in 5 countries in APAC. Born in Japan, studied and worked for a few years in Japan, and went overseas to gain working and living experience in a different country and cultures. After 6 years, came back to Japan in 2013, worked in Tokyo, Odawara, and now moved to Beppu, July this year. So it's been 4 months since then. When I first came to Beppu, I fall in love with the view from the lobby. Blue ocean, towering mountain, sky changes its face every moment, and onsen steam everywhere in the city. So I believe Beppu is one of the most beautiful places to visit in the world. So I love my hotel like Kubo Shacho does. So ANA-Intercontinental Beppu opened in August 2019 as first and only onsen resort in IHG brand. I wonder why I'm so fascinated with this property. I found my answer is coexistence with nature brings natural beauty and sophistication. The hotel has 89 rooms, 5 restaurants and bar, Han Heritage Spa from Thailand, and photogenic infinity pool and onsen to complete our exclusive resort experience. Now I must introduce most inspiring woman I ever met, passionate female leader who has love towards people and hotels and community since opening. She lead by example, and I'm very lucky to have her on as a role model who inspires and motivates us to move toward our purpose to provide true hospitality for good. Now, I would like to share what we do in the hotel under her leadership. Inspired by philosophy of 5 elements, our lobby theme is Beyond the Forest. There are many local natural resources, such as Beppu stone, Beppu bamboo craft, not only in the public area, but also in guest rooms and amenities, such as lampshade are handmade locally with local bamboo. Concept of the hotel has harmony with nature and contribution toward community in Beppu. Saving energies is one of the key focus in the hospitality business. We install guest room controller. System is able to know real-time guest status of the room. So that lighting and air conditioner to be controlled according to the status by system. And company car has been replaced by plug-in hybrid car recently for environment. And we toned down the lightings and placed the nice candles during the dinner at restaurant. Other example here is as a rooms division, aligned with IHG initiative, we use bulk amenity instead of individual package to reduce the usage of plastic and prevent wastage. And food and beverage division, we're collaborating with one of the winemaker, currently collecting the wine cork to be recycled and to be reused or remade into the coasters for eco-friendly. And we also focus local production, local consumption. It's very fortunate here in Oita and Greater Kyushu area has abundance of fresh, high quality local products available. Therefore, now 80% of products that we use in the hotel are produced locally, helps environment as well. Most importantly, hotel business is all about people. We care about our people, and our people, same as we care for guests and community. And at our hotel, leadership achieved fair gender balance as of now. About 50% of management is actually female. And we originally designed our uniform as unisex, so aiming for good gender balance into the future. We celebrate diversity in nationality in this team and provide training and mentorship for inclusion. Also, career development opportunity for staff, including local people, local talent. We do see our challenge though, to grow female leader in next generation. Actually, the percentage of female supervisor level dropped significantly compared to management level. So this is something we need to make sure working toward the improvement. And other future challenges we have is utilizing geothermal from onsen for clean energy. This is something unique that we can do as an onsen city in Beppu. And other thing is more digital usage and less paper, but we need to find the best balance in between, I guess, convenience and while protecting the tree from cutting. And lastly, how to reduce excessive wrapping for gifts using papers, boxes, and ribbon and paper bags. This is related to Japanese omotenashi culture. Japanese wrapping culture is the way to show omotenashi and respect and care. But we believe this should not be contradict with SDG initiative. So luxury and sustainability may contradict, but I personally believe luxury and sustainability can coexist, like beauty of nature and simplicity can represent a luxury. And lastly, I would like to share some word I like, which is leadership starts within, and we can make positive change into our future. So thanks for listening.
Thank you very much for your impressive presentations. Ms. Yoshimi, Mr. Kubo, and Glenn. And we could understand that you all are talking the same language, but with different scale. So the Hospitality Alliance is taking charge of coordinating with thousands of accommodations and hospitality organizations and entrepreneurs like you guys to see what is going on in global level. And in local level, we have these examples. In Gahama and Amane Resort example, we see a continuous development. I have been teaching tourism and hospitality in this city and locality and for about 20 years. And I have seen that once every 4 or 5 years, Hotel Seikai or Amane is expanding. It's going bigger and bigger. From Hotel Seikai, we have Gahama Terrace, and then we have Gahama Tower. I don't know, one day maybe Kubo Shacho is going to expand Amane Resort to Beppu Tower. I don't know, but the question is that how you incorporate your development with sustainability. Actually, I'm going to start my question with Sustainability Alliance, and I would like to ask Glenn, if possible, about the individual hospitality companies who are making great strides in sustainability, but the sector as a whole is not being recognized as the leader. So what are the factors, Glenn, that limits the progression of sustainability, and what should companies be doing to make this a priority?
Yes, very good. Well, I have to tell you, just as you were asking the question, and as I'm in a hotel, of course, they knocked on the door, so I had to. I missed it. I missed it. You might have to just start the beginning of that question.
Okay, let me repeat it then,
yes,
if you don't mind. I hear your presentation is about more that individual hospitality companies are making great strides in sustainability, right, but the sector as a whole is not being recognized as a leader. So what are the factors limiting progression of sustainability, and what should companies be doing to make this a priority?
Yes. Well, first and foremost, it's a great question. Thank you. What's holding that back is the complexity of the hotel industry itself and its ownership. Obviously, there are locally owned properties, individually owned, and then obviously within a complexity of within a brand and a series of brands. So that complex ownership style is makes it difficult to communicate directly to the decision makers all the time, and so that is an ongoing challenge that we as an industry continue to work to overcome. As you noted in your question, sustainability is still not seen universally as a priority, and it's seen as sort of a voluntary exercise from some properties who you've heard. Two fabulous properties just now who have taken those steps and made those efforts, both as a brand and both as a local company. They have made those efforts to do that, but it's not a universal thing at this moment. Things are changing. Things are driving that change, with whether it be, like I mentioned in my presentation, around regulation, and customers and employees are starting to demand that. It's still not a universal priority. And then there's this lack of consistent approach. The industry is always, sort of plagued with lots of jargon, lots of words, lots of different models to measure success around carbon. Even for that, there's not a universal carbon measurement tool, those kind of things that need to get to a place where we enable industry to have that common set of language, so that when we pull those data together, we can make a very coherent and strong message to the world of what hospitality is in fact doing to combat climate change. And and then the last piece is there's just lack of or an insufficient internal sustainability capacity. There's still a need for more sustainability leaders within each of the companies. I had just met here in COP with one of a leading company called Iberostar, who have 27 people on their team focused just on sustainability in that file for the company. That's not a universal thing that's happening across company-wide, and that it takes a big challenge, and there's a capacity issue there. So those are the kind of things that are holding it back.
Thank you, Glenn. Let me ask Hotel Amane Resort about what benefits do you think that you are providing for Beppu city community? You have done a great development since last 2 decades. So how your activities and how your development benefit the community and society in Beppu? Kubo Shacho, please.
はい。皆さんよく開発をすると、やっぱ自然を壊すとか、そちらの方に目が行きそうなんですけども、やはり自然を大切にした開発ということを心がけています。で、特に私ども何度も言うようですけども、温泉というそのエネルギーを持った、 ものをたくさんいただいています。そのエネルギーを、社会の負荷にかかっている部分で、補うことを、本当に心から心がけて、日頃から心がけて、やっていく。ゴミを焼却するという行為は、やっぱり、社会に負荷をかけてますので、そういうところをなくしていこう、っていう部分も、温泉熱を利用した、どういうのかな、発酵技術をうまく使ってやるという一つの例。もう一つ私どもは、心がけているのは、温泉熱を地熱の、言いますか、熱交換を使って、うまく、日頃使っている温水を、温泉からいただく、温泉の熱からいただくということを心がけて、ガスを使わず、電気を使わず、なるべく地熱で賄うという、なるべく地域に負荷をかけないように頑張ってやっています。もう一つあるのが、その海のゴミからどういうふうに、うまくなんて言いますか、処理をできる方法を、教えていただきたいなということもあるんですけども、これはまだ、ちょっと出来上がってません。ただただ私たちは、海から出るゴミを拾い集めて、どうにかしたいなというふうに思ってますけども。ですから、今言えるのはその温泉という自然からいただいたエネルギーを利用するということを心がけています。よろしいでしょうか。
Yes, thank you very much. I have been in your facility and also in Intercontinental. Both of you are environmental friendly, as I know, and I know Intercontinental is in the mountainside, and Amane Resort and Hotel Seika is just next to the sea. And the background photo of Kubo Shacho is showing the lobby that just is into the ocean, and that's amazing. And I know that you suffer from the pollution more than people who are living in the city, because the garbage comes to you first. And I have been I've seen that your staff are cleaning this garbage, taking the plastic from the sea. Do you think you can collect all the garbage, Kubo Shacho?
はい。手に持てる部分は、ものは回収できるんですけども、どうしてもそのテトラポットにかかっている部分で回収できないものがやっぱり非常に多くありますので、それをどういうふうにしたらいいのかなっていう部分は、行政とやはり手を組んでいかないといけないのではないかなというふうに思っています。
Thank you very much. Actually, this question of mine is even I can't answer it. We are not able to collect all this garbage, and I know you are doing the effort. But as an educator, I am going to suggest maybe later. Professor Cooper is here, and he has been teaching tourism and hospitality more than my age. But I think as an educator, we have to educate our tourists not to produce the garbage. Than how we collect it back. So the future generations should learn what is happening to the nature, and the hospitality industry, as Glenn mentioned, that is blamed for many of these, is suffering from that. And we should be seen as the leaders in sustainability. Let me go to Intercontinental Hotel. And before I ask my question, I would like to ask Scott admin to show the videos that we received from Intercontinental, and then we come back to you. Thank you for the nice video, Haruna. And
Hi, thank
my
you.
question to Intercontinental in Beppu is that, unlike Hotel Sekai, that they are born in Beppu and they are very local, you are not local in Beppu, but you are working in this locality. You mentioned about your local product use and 80%. That is great. So I want to know how you could come up with this solution as a newcomer, and how could you be attached to the locality to make sure that 80% of your material that you're using is local. Can you elaborate?
Yep, thank you for asking. And firstly, since this hotel is built in Beppu, we opening team really wanted to make sure the hotel contribute or collaborate together with community, because that is very important for us to be successful and live with the community. So luckily, we were able to choose the product from a scratch. So we try to choose locally made products such as bamboo, Beppu bamboo. Try to connect with the local artist, local producer. So the art in the hotel is mostly attached with the Beppu locally, and guest room as well. Not only the lampshade, but the trees and decoration base and everything relates to Beppu community. So that's the passion from the since the hotel opening. And how we make sure that 80% is actually about the food we buy from the supplier. So we make sure where we buy from. So we know that where this product is coming from. So everything we do, actually, we always care about. We are part of Beppu.
Thank you, Haruna. I got a tour for your interior facilities and everything by your manager, and I was I enjoyed how you guys bring the community and Beppu into your international facilities, that you brought it in and you incorporated all. That is a very big step ahead into being sustainable. Let me go back to Glenn. Before I ask my question, Glenn, what do you want to ask them, and what are you going to offer to us?
What I'm going to ask the question? Well, I'm just like, I'm very impressed with what I've seen and heard here today of the work that's going on within the two properties, and certainly IHT is a part of the alliance. Been very engaged within the leadership of the alliance as well. So I'm very pleased at what I'm seeing there. So I don't have any particular question that I think, can ask.
Yeah, I've heard from the both properties that they are seeking collaboration. They want to know
100%.
what is going on in international level, and how can they implement your, for example, carbon measurement tool and your water stewardship program that they have, because this destination is, let's say, 95% based on the hot spring.
Yes,
and
exactly.
The water quality.
Yes, so critical. So first and foremost, really encourage any properties that are out there to reach out to us. We have a full team of professionals and experts in these different areas of carbon and water, but also on the people agenda, which I was very pleased to see the conversation around people. When we talk about everything from modern slavery to diversity and equity in the workplace, it's really important that we present that balance. And so we do have a series of experts that are there to help guide. We are a global charity, and as such are open to anybody reaching out, and we develop a series of tools. And so I think the big thing is if any property that's out there, together with whether they're part of a brand or individually, ensure that they develop a sustainability strategy itself. And we have a number of tools and resources to help that, to really look at their whole ESG approach, but really embed that into their business strategy. We need to it's not a separate document. It's something, your business strategy is your sustainability strategy. And ideally, you're making commitments publicly and internally to your staff at a minimum. You're reporting against these commitments, and you're sharing best practice, which is what's happening here today, is really sharing best practice. And so then, and I think even further to that, you really look at your supplier agreements that you have, and really embed into your supplier agreements a core set of principles and values that you are going to commit to, and that you will actually hold to account your suppliers to, which then has a much more deeper and broader impact that can happen. And so that then moves your sustainability efforts along significantly if you take those key steps.
I think you're reading my mind. I was going to ask you the question about how to bring this sustainability increasingly as a value-driven in the business, and how they can be better embedded into the corporate strategy. So you already answered. So
yeah, and I think even to add to that, then, because as really you have to engage the staff. The staff need to operationalize all the principles and philosophies that you as a company are really embracing, and so you have to embed that into employment contracts, and maybe even target and offer incentives to your teams. It's been used very successfully. The notion of incentives, those are elements that start to build culture, and then culture, then once it's entrenched, can then lead that sustainability effort. But yeah, you have to have a strategy in place though to make that happen.
Thank you very much. Let me go back to Hotel Seikai or Amane, Mr. Kubo. Mr. Kubo is one of our advisors in our university as the TEDCall advisor, and he's or their organization is very good at using our or the in general the professional human resource. I would like to ask you, Mr. Kubo, how are you going to or how are you using professionals and using this or their spatial knowledge in your hospitality service? Are you using only onsen water, or you have more, let's say, research on onsen, how to utilize onsen better? What are other advantage of being in the onsen or having onsen water? Can you share some of your experience, please?
もちろん、市中にあまりいないもんですから、大学、近くに別府大学のケミカルなことをやっている先生方もいらっしゃいますし、東京理科大の先生も講義にしています。そういった先生方と連携しながら、温泉の質を測ったり、熱をうまく利用するためにどうしたらいいかっていうことを、今度はサイエンスの方から、いろんなサジェッションを受けたりはしています。そうすることによって、うまくこう回っていけることを念頭に置いて、そのうち、立命館アジア太平洋大学の、観光学部の先生方にも、何か聞けるようなことがあるんではなかろうかと思います。そういったプロフェッショナルな方を教授というか、先生に迎えて、私ども、松井でアカデミーというものを社内で持っていますので、いろんな活用ができるので、うまく先生方と協業しています。
Thank you, Mr. Kubo. I know you have been doing some research. I have been collaborating with some of your staff, and I got to know that you are doing research on some health elements of onsen water, some bacteria that are in hot spring. Yes, please.
はい。はい。温泉水を食に、利用して、新しい何か食の提供ができるんではなかろうかと。単なる水ではなくて、温泉水を旨味というものにどういうふうに作用するのかという研究もしていただいています。これを別府らしさのある、食に、何かこうコラボできないかなというふうに、来年度はそちらの方に、ちょっと力を入れてやっていこうというふうに思っています。
Thank you very much. So I know that you are going beyond the just bathing or using hot spring for bath, and you are using it as a food, and that is amazing. If you bring this up and bring more into the health issues and usage. Let me go back to Glenn. We have a very unique opportunity to have him here, but of course he promised that we are going to have longer collaborations. So Glenn, in the Sustainability Alliance, you said that you want business to take the purpose-driven approach to a net positive hospitality. For many people, maybe they have not heard about net positive hospitality, but you explained it very well. But I would like to ask, what are the critical areas that you think need addressing to make the industry more purpose-driven in this case?
Yeah, great question. Well, the first and foremost is a common set of measures. This is a big holdback for the industry itself globally. Being able to articulate, as I mentioned, how we as an industry are progressing. We want to be able to look 5 years from now and look back and say we actually made a difference. And not being able to have a common set of measures universally accepted is certainly holding us back. And as a result, we need to rethink what we're measuring. As I mentioned before, we can't be just measuring productivity, occupancy, revenue. We actually have to start to think about much more broader, holistic set of measures around carbon, water, waste, and those elements that reflect the people agenda as well. As I mentioned before, we have to go beyond net zero. Net zero and sustainability are just sustaining what we have today. It doesn't take us further, and in order to we have to actually give back now more than we take, because we have a lot of ground to make up as a sector. And as I mentioned, also we have to balance the notion between customer and community and how that plays out in our thinking, and understand those political, investor, public, and employee. One of the aspects of that we're seeing is that the employees aren't coming back to the industry globally like after the pandemic, even though the sector has grown its wage rate faster than any other economic sector in the world since the pandemic, which we had a lot of ground to make up for, quite frankly. But we're not attracting those labor people back into the workforce, and by and large because we're not living up to this higher sense of purpose. And so the examples you see here on the screen of our distinguished panelists are living up to that that living up to a higher standard, and as such, growing their employee base as a result, because they have that higher sense of purpose. But we as an industry need to articulate how we represent that we are a force for good, and this notion of positivity. So those elements, together with this idea that I mentioned in my presentation, that it's a privilege, not a right, to have tourism in the first place in a particular community, but also it's a privilege to have your hotel in a particular community, not a right. That community provided zoning and other costing that enabled that property to be built there, and as such, we need to respect that. And as a result, when you come at it from that perspective, you can have some big change happen in a positive way.
Thank you, Glenn. I know as a charity organizations, all you think is positive, and people trust your organization and they're using it. And in Japan, especially in our area, we have this plan. We are going to start with these two very iconic organizations, this Hotel International, Intercontinental, and Hotel Seiko, that many Japanese celebrities, they have stayed with their accommodation, and we hope we create a path that in hospitality industry of Japan, we have people more thinking about water, carbon, and sustainability. And especially, I was so happy to hear the word omotenashi from Hotel Intercontinental that brings a Japanese version of hospitality that is very unique. It took me a lot of time to understand what is real omotenashi. And I think I now understand it after 20 years of living in Japan. But yes, it might be cool that we can bring these elements of omotenashi internationally and say what are the sustainable omotenashi as well. I think our time is going to be over very soon, and I would like to pass, before I pass it on to Malcolm, I want to ask you guys, if you have some time, please look through the chat. We have very wonderful questions from our attendants, and some of them are directed to Hotel Intercontinental and to Mr. Glenn and to Kubo Shacho. We are going to collect all the questions and get the answer soon. Now, for a short conclusion, I would pass it on to Malcolm. Professor Cooper, floor is yours.
Thank you. It will be very short. We don't have much time at all. I'm given the task of putting all this together in a concrete flow between webinars and within webinars. I was absolutely fascinated by what happened today. We started off with the real question: has anything really changed? And that's the point. The COVID virus, for better or for worse, gave us a breathing space to rethink over tourism and to rethink our collective responsibility for the environment, for society. And I'm very privileged to have had 3 presenters who did that, very much so. I'm actually a city planner by training. I'm a water board member for many, many years, and I ended up in Japan as a teacher in tourism development and environmental law. An interesting career in itself, but Beppu has always been my base point for trying to understand how to use the resources in Japan through the hot springs. I thought, though, that this webinar actually stepped back from all of that and said, okay, we're responsible for part of it as people in the hotel industry, but only part of it. We've got to develop our own internals, as Glenn and Haruna and Riccio said, so that they reflect what we want out of tourism. But we're only part of that. We have to bring the community together with us, not serve the community in the sense of servicing the tourist, but being part of the community to develop the wider connection with tourism and our resources. Net positive hospitality is I think, a fantastic little thing. You know, it says it all. It means that you can't just simply deal with your own, but the collective has to be more. You know, the sum is more than the parts is a very old aphorism, and that applies here. So I'm going to write you up as the way forward. I didn't think, I thought at one point you might have mentioned some of the earlier attempts at environment, like Green Globe and a few others, that I was with when I was a town planner, in trying to promote the community's point of view to the management of the resources, be they residential or hotels, whatever, and for the resources to mention how they needed to act. And we found that we could spend all night talking about this, I guess. We found very much a disconnection between the industry and its community. And it wasn't deliberate. It wasn't the industry going out looking for profits all the time. It was that nobody was really talking to each other. Anyway, Kazem says bye-bye. So I will say thank you very, very much for the chance to listen.
Thanks, Malcolm. I like your conclusion of the way forward. Yes, this is just the beginning. We are going to have Glenn, Sustainable Hospitality Alliance, and the leaders of hospitality of Japan, that they're representative of here, and see this the way forward. And we are going to definitely have other webinars following this, and with more specific and narrow actions. Today was more introductory to the important subject, and we are going to have we didn't have Professor Jafari today. He's on the way to go to Europe from the States. It was 3 a.m. in his local time. On behalf of Professor Jafari and Scott team, I would like to thank all of you and invite you to join us with the next webinar series in this subject. I know you guys have a lot to say and share, but we are going to lose our simultaneous translation service in 1 minute. And
Can I make one statement?
Yes.
My second daughter follows Haruna's career path in IHG, in room management and so on. So I also know IHG. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Malcolm. A very special thanks to Glenn to accept and for accepting this invitation in his very busy schedule. And thanks, and happy being connected from local to global. Our slogan in Scott is "A nice place to live is a nice place to visit." Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Just a moment.